Hi, I'm Kylie McMullan.
And I'm Paul Nixey.
And this is PR Today. For first-time viewers and listeners, PR Today is a podcast and video cast about public relations and how it can help small businesses and entrepreneurs.
That's right. On each show, we have two segments, the first of which we take a topical news item and look at it through a PR lens. And the second half of each show, we review an industry practice or
A tip.
Some tips of the trade for you, and all about how to help your business succeed with public relations.
So today we're going to be looking at a recent news event with Aritzia.
Aritzia.
And then we're going to be talking about key messages.
Excellent. Let's get started.
So let's talk about Aritzia.
Aritzia, they have a problem. They had a clothing tag that was on a new line of clothing that was deeply offensive to many people.
Yeah, so basically what happened was it said something like, dumb girls aren't cute, which is kind of a weird thing to say anyway, but then what was the real kicker is under it they had sign language, and I don't know sign language, so I'm not sure if it actually spelled out dumb girls aren't cute, but it kind of gave the impression that it was.
Yeah.
And those two things together made a lot of different groups mad, especially groups for, like deaf or disabled people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dumb is never cute with sign language underneath.
Yeah.
So, of course, this is, offended almost everyone who saw it.
Yeah. Immediately.
Immediately, yeah. So it wasn't in the stores very long, and of course the company reacted by taking the tags off the clothes and destroying the tags and apologized, sort of.
Yeah. So I mean, the first thing I would say about it is how did that get approved?
Right.
I mean, I think we see this sometimes in companies where everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid, someone says a suggestion, everyone jumps on board, and no one takes that step back and is like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Which is actually where PR agencies can really help, vet those ideas, because they can provide an outside perspective of how the public might react to something.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So in this case, the company decided to use as their spokesperson their director of public relations. Now, when you have a director of public relations, it sounds like you're trying to spin something a little bit. So we always recommend that it's not the PR department itself acting as a spokesperson for the organization. And if we flip back to our last podcast, we talked about Lululemon.
Yeah.
They didn't have a marketing person stand up. They didn't have a PR person stand up. They had the CEO stand up and take full responsibility when they had a product issue.
Yeah, when they're transparent pants issue.
Transparent pants.
Yeah. And the problem, too, is when that spokesperson, their director of public relations, gave her or it wasn't even really an apology.
Right.
It kind of, she definitely did some of the things you're supposed to do, like take full responsibility, be quick. The company definitely removed the product really quickly. But it came across as a bit aggressive, the quote to the media.
Yeah, she said, "We know we are at fault here."
Yeah.
Which is kind of like saying sorry.
But
not quite there.
So close,
yes,
but
exactly.
so far at the same time.
If you're going to admit responsibility and take full responsibility for something, you can't do it in a half-measured way. You have to really go for it and be honest and transparent. And I think that they were there was a bit of a tone that they were they knew they got caught.
Yeah.
Versus recognizing that this was an issue that was not something to be defensive about necessarily, but they could make this right.
Yeah, it kind of felt almost like they were annoyed that people were offended. You know what I mean? It just didn't kind of sit the same way. It would have been so much more impactful if the CEO of the company had said, I'm sorry, we did not mean to offend anyone.
Right.
This, despite our best efforts, this got out. We're taking full responsibility, and then even made a donation to a charity,
or the sales of that particular clothing line partnered with a charity that had been impacted by this. I think the BC Coalition of People with Disabilities, of course, were offended and let it be known. But now, when Aritzia's search results on Google, this comes up. They were in national media, not just I think 24 Hours here in Vancouver broke the story.
Yeah.
But that means that the Toronto Sun has
Globe
it.
and Mail.
Globe and Mail was everywhere. So bit of a nightmare for them. Could have handled it better. Operationally they did all the right things.
Yeah.
But this is an example of sometimes if you're in crisis, your public relations people should really be at the table and leading a team, and not just following the operators around.
Yeah, so what would you give them in terms of a letter grade?
Ooh, C+.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They took swift action.
Yeah.
They sort of apologized. I think they'll recover from it. No problem.
Aritzia fans are Aritzia fans.
Another iconic Vancouver brand.
I know.
We've got two clothing, Lululemon and Aritzia.
I know.
What is
in
it
2
about
podcasts.
Vancouver? In 2 podcasts. Amazing.
So I think it's probably time to move on to key messages.
Let's do it. Welcome back. In the second half of our show today, we're going to be talking about key messages. What are they? When to use them? How many should you have?
And key messages, so I teach a class at SFU, and key messages are something that my students always struggle trying to understand because it sounds more complicated than it is.
Right.
The idea sounds big, but it's actually very simple and simple to execute, and anyone can use it at any time.
Yeah, my big learning when I was first starting out in public relations about key messages is that they shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, it should be so obvious. It's almost like, oh, of course that's the key message.
Right, yeah, exactly. One trap that a lot of people fall into in crafting key messages, they think that they need to tell the entire story, the history of a company or an organization. And really, when it comes to key messages, we know that shorter is better.
Exactly. I mean, I think the example I love to use is Nature's Path. They have beautiful short key messages that they use consistently and have for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So, family owned and operated, organic.
Right.
And those kind of sum it all about what the company is about.
Yeah.
And, because they use those short snippets in every single communication, whether it be advertising, on their website, in their press releases,
right.
It really it cements itself in people's minds.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. So walk us through when you're teaching a class or whether you're working with a big brand. What are the steps to creating key messages?
So I think, like you said, it shouldn't be a surprise. It's really, before you put pen to paper, before you start writing anything or coming up with any kind of advertisement or even a poster, brochure, you really want to think about what it is you want to communicate to your audience. So in our last podcast, we talked about audiences and how important it is to know who your audience is. After you've defined who that person is, you want to make sure you really understand what you're trying to convey to them through this piece. So if they only remember, 1, 2, maybe 3 max things
right.
about your company, what are those little snippets?
Keep it simple.
Yeah. So Spence Diamonds is another local company that I think does it really well. You know what they're about. Good price diamonds that are high quality.
Yeah. All right. So when it comes to key messages, we know keep it to 3, no more than 3.
Yeah, and I think, the mistake that a lot of companies make, whether they're dealing with a PR agency or just drafting a communication themselves, is they'll try to shove every single fact about their company into that communications piece, just because, it feels so important to them that, of
right.
course, people will want to know these 18 things about my company. But really, the public has such a short attention span that you're doing yourself a disservice by trying to tell them everything all at once. It's kind of like being on a date. You want to keep some things a mystery.
Yeah.
You want to unveil things slowly.
Keep it light, keep it breezy.
Exactly.
Good. It's like being on a date.
Being on a date.
It's key messages, dating style. I like it. It's good. So key messages are important to develop before doing any public outreach. Why?
It really will concentrate your thinking and make sure that, it's an easy measure of success in terms of, okay, here's what I want people to know. And then afterwards you can say, if I read this, would I know those things that are important?
Right.
And it really helps you, focus what you're going to be writing about, what you're going to be talking about, and making sure that you put those 3 points at the top of the communication in terms
right.
of if you had a communication hierarchy where, these 3 things are the most important, these 3 things are the least important. You can really, because sometimes when you start writing, you distract yourself. You kind of, might put some less important things first,
Right.
And then some more important things you kind of bury, just kind of as you're writing and trying to get things on paper.
Right.
Whereas starting out with those key messages, really prioritize them for you.
Yeah, exactly. And a measure of success for key messages is if you're sending press releases out or pitching editors and reporters, if your key message is reflected in a headline of coverage that somebody's chosen to written about, then you know you've hit it on the head. This is the example I always use in your class when I talk about one of my clients is the Vancouver Queer Film Festival, and last year they had their 24th anniversary, and the theme was Lovers and Fighters. And
Such
in
a great theme.
It was great, right? Yeah. And every single headline that was written about it and in all the papers and all the coverage was lovers and fighters converge, lovers and fighters come together. So we kept hearing those key messages, and it's it's stuck.
Yeah.
When you see that at the final product.
And another great part about key messages too is when you're training a spokesperson and putting them out in front of the media, you can actually take those key messages and tell them basically to just say them.
Right.
I mean, fleshed out as more of a sentence than just like a little nugget or soundbite, but they really become what that person should talk about in the interview.
Right, exactly. Yeah, an interview is not a conversation. It's a chance for you to, get your message out. So, and I'm sure we'll cover that in another episode of PR Today.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. We hope you join us again next week when we'll be talking about when to hire a PR agency and what to look for.
All right, thanks very much for watching. That's the end of our show.
And we hope you join us again next week when we're going to be talking about public relations agencies, when you should hire them, and what you should be looking for.
Exactly. Thanks for watching PR Today. I'm Paul Nixey.
And I'm Kylie McMullan.